Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dad Designer podcast. Today, I'm joined by Ian Paget. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Michael, I'm very honored to be on.
Yeah, and why don't you tell folks a little bit about your design background and some
Sure.
about your family?
Yeah, sure. So, my name's Ian Paget. I'm a graphic designer. My main focus here today is primarily logo design. I established my own graphic design business called Logo Geek, which started as a hobby, and over the years, it's gradually become my full-time thing. So day to day, I'm basically designing logos for clients globally of all sizes. And then in addition to that, I also host a podcast which is called the Logo Geek Podcast. I run a community, and I also have a book called Make a Living Designer Logos, which is really the core focus of the content that I'm creating for graphic designers. So the community, the podcast, the book, and anything else that I add to that ecosystem is all focused on supporting designers to build a business around what they enjoy. So making a living from logo design. As for my family, I'm a single dad to a cute little 5-year-old girl called Evie. She is my priority, my world essentially, and here today I'm juggling my client work around the time with her, and I'm sure anyone watching that's a parent, it's not that easy, but you get it done.
Yeah, very cool. And you mentioned before you came on, a lot of the ecosystem that you mentioned, you built kind of prior to becoming a single dad, and over the last couple of
Correct.
years, some of that priority has shifted.
Yeah, correct. I started what's here today over 10 years ago now. I think I'm on my 13th year since actually starting it, and it's something initially that started as a side venture just for fun. Because back then I believe I was working full time for a web design agency, and something that I enjoyed doing my own time because I'm self taught. I actively like to start fun personal projects. And at that time, it was anything from movie posters to computer game artwork. It was basically anything that I found fun that kind of pushed my skills and let me sort of experiment. And I started the Logo Geek stuff after uh, working on a big iPhone game project, and that was a very long term project, which was pretty draining at the end of the experience. And I ended up starting Logo Geek. But yeah, that initially started when I wasn't a parent, and throughout the bulk of that time, I've always been pretty career focused. I've been very career driven since a teenager, essentially wanting to learn. It's been my core focus above everything else, pretty much. And when my daughter was born, like 5 years ago or so, um, uh, that priority slowly shifted. I was at that stage, I was part time. So what I did is uh, throughout that duration, I wanted to leave my full time job, but they offered me a part time position instead, and that was quite convenient. But I was in that position prior to my daughter being born, but it was the photos and the updates that I was getting while being in my part time job that pushed me to jump. Because it was so hard spending the time with her when I was working from home, and then suddenly being at work and seeing, little videos of her, just walking or saying a word or something. I didn't like it, and I basically sat down, worked out how much do I need to earn to replace my part-time income, and it was nowhere near as much as I thought it was. So I'm like, this is doable. So I handed in my notice, and um, I ended up, working full time, and it was nice being in that position where um, I could work, be there at home. At that time, I was still with my daughter's mum, so I was able to enable her to be in a position where she could be a full time mum. Even then, I was still working quite a lot. But it was when I became a single dad that I do feel that things have shifted a lot since then. It has changed my focus really, and to some degree, right here, right now, I'm kind of cruising off the back of the stuff that I did over a 10-year period. Because I have my daughter half the time, I just don't have a lot of time in the week. I share custody of my daughter 50-50 with her mum. And if you can imagine, there's like 2 days a week when I have to myself, and then every other weekend, to myself as well. And that involves doing the school run and stuff like that as well. So um it has been a major shift to adjust to that, and there's obviously certain things I've had to prioritize over others. So prioritizing things that immediately bring in the income. So for example, client work in my case is the easiest way of generating an income. And then a lot of the stuff that unfortunately that I feel enabled me to be where I am now, I've had to kind of pause for now. It's not that I quit doing it, it's just it's not a priority right now. And at some point I would get back to it. So things like my podcast, unfortunately, I haven't put one out in a while. I'm not as active in the community as I used to be. I don't put out as much content as I used to, but I'm very fortunate that I'm still getting the calls, and I know that I will need to work on that stuff still, but it will be much more focused ongoing. I'm sure as my daughter gets older and more independent, and I get the time back, then I can get back to that. But I think something that's really important is that when you are building a personal brand, and when you are working as an independent graphic designer, things will change through your life. Priorities will shift and change, and that's okay. And I think there is this great pressure to continually post, to continually do all these things. But it's been an eye opener to see that I don't need to do all of that stuff that I did in order to pay the bills. And that means that I can enjoy a lot more time with my daughter. And I'm really proud to be able to say I have not missed anything in my daughter's life. I've seen her first steps. I've heard her first words. I've been there when she's needed me. Something that's important to me is that I pick her up on time at school so that when she walks out the door, she can see me. Things like that's really important to me. And um, I'm very fortunate. This thing that started as a hobby has enabled me to be um, as present as I can be with my daughter.
Yeah.
I'm happy with how it's going personally.
And the hobby side hustle thing, was that where the book was generated out of?
So with the Logo Geek stuff, initially it started as a hobby. I enjoyed working on logo design projects, and I created a website to post what I was doing, and I was picking up some interesting sort of social media growth hack techniques from my full time job, and I was experimenting with different things like community building and all these things. And to some degree, it was lots of bits that wasn't connected other than being under the name of Logo Geek. So it was connected to some degree, but there wasn't a common theme. In terms of the book, that vision for that was very early on. So I know that I wanted to write a book quite early on in this journey. Um, at that stage, it was something like Learn Logo Design. It would have been just a logo design book. But it was when I um, actually went full time, or I think it might have been when I went part time, so I had more time to focus on my business. I started to think about things that would allow me to be seen as an expert on the topic. And in my mind, authors, people that put out content, um, there's a number of things that people can do to be seen as an authority. And I felt like um, I kind of had a lot of the pieces, but I didn't have this book. And I wanted to do this book anyway. But it was really when I was thinking, okay, is there a way of bringing all of this together under a specific theme? And I thought of this idea of make a living designer logos as opposed to um, something like learn logo design, because there's a lot of logo design books out there already. And although it's really cool to have the dream of writing another one of those books, I wanted to do something different. And I feel that actually made it much more unique and helpful for people as opposed to what I initially thought about writing.
Nice. And about how many years ago did that come out?
So I launched the book. It's about 2 years ago now. I did it through
Okay.
Kickstarter
Oh,
initially.
nice.
And then Kickstarter allowed me to get some like nice copies manufactured, and then after that, I then released it print on demand globally. So if you was to go on Amazon, it gets printed specifically for you. It's a lot more expensive than I would like to do it for, but unfortunately, there's a fairly high cost to printing these books. I don't make a huge amount of money from it, but that's not why I put this out there. But it releasing that book was a pivotal moment.
Yeah, that's really awesome that the book kickstarted that portion of your career. Another thing I wanted to talk about was you mentioned a bit about securing the work for a logo for Cambridge University and
Mhm.
how that was kind of a big moment in your career. Can you
Sure.
tell us a little bit about that story?
So with the Cambridge University project, uh, I would say that that was definitely a big moment for me, and I think it's worth giving sort of a little bit of a background to it. So I'm a self-taught graphic designer, and nobody has sat down and taught me how to do logos. So it's been pretty surreal to sort of grow up as this kid that grew up on a council estate to having this artistic hobby and eventually getting to a point where I just build this website. It's so surreal to have got to the point where I eventually got hired by Cambridge University, because at school when I was like 16, I was told by a careers advisor that if I wanted to have a career as a graphic designer, that I would have to go to university. And I never did. And look where I am now. I'm doing what I wanted to and being hired by universities to design logos for them. So how I actually managed to get that job. At that stage, I was part time in my business. I had not long previously sort of given in my notice and been in this position where the company offered me part time. So I was becoming more serious about my business. I had more time available, and I received this email not long after I'd redesigned my website. And because I know when I eventually took the leap to sort of working for myself, I wanted my website to look as good as it could be. I wanted to give every opportunity I could to succeed when I finally took that leap. So I spent, sort of every evening, every spare drop of time I had after my full time job to rework my website. So I had some nice photos done. Spent time adding them to the website, added a few new case studies, and I just polished it all up and made it look as good as it can be. I feel by doing that, when this person at Cambridge University came across my website, they obviously felt this sense of credibility that I could actually help them. And if you can imagine, self-taught designer, I had never expected to receive an email from anyone of any credibility. I was quite happy working with small mum and pop shops, startups, people that needed somebody to help with what they're doing for reasonably low cost. So getting that email was a big surprise. I never thought I would actually get the job, but as soon as that came in, I'm like, let's book in a call, let's have a conversation. Um, Called pretty much immediately after I sent that email. We had a chat for like 20 minutes. He told me that he would need to have a conversation with his manager, so the person who'd actually set up the research team, and he asked me if I could send something over to him. And at that time, how I used to do it is basically I pretty much had a template email that I would send over. And if the client wanted to go ahead, whether in response to that email or a yes on the phone, what I would do is I would just kick things off. There was no proposal documents or any, nice things that were sent after having a call. I wanted to impress. I really wanted that job. So what I did is I actually had things down that I needed to get done. I'm like, nope, pushed it all to one side and focused on putting a proposal document together as fast as I could. Sort of sitting there googling, finding what's nice layouts for this stuff, and I pretty much throw something together in like a 2 hour period, and sent over, and literally within like half an hour, it's like, yep, let's go ahead. And that blew my mind, first of all, to get hired by Cambridge University. And after doing that project, I wanted to make sure that I showcased it as best as I could. So I used the money that I got from that project to hire a friend of mine to help with like an animated case study. And that eventually got a little shout out on Armin Vit's brand new, which was pretty cool. But also I feel having that project on my website and putting the little Cambridge University logos or next to it so people knew that it was for them. It's opened up so many doors since. I've worked with so many university-based research teams since then.
Yeah, that's really cool. The idea that these organizations are huge is kind of an interesting thought because it's like,
Mhm,
yes, the organization is huge, and yes, now your name can be associated with that university because you've done work for them.
mhm.
But really, you did work, like you were saying, for that one person. And
Yes, yeah.
like one small connection has the potential and power to catapult you into a much bigger
Yeah,
association.
exactly, exactly. I know I think a lot about this, especially now I've got older and sort of work with different companies and different types of people. I think a lot of what's in the world is a bit of an illusion, really, and it's really just clever marketing and good graphic design and good video skills and nice photos and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff that you see, it's all in your head, and at the end of the day, any client, no matter what company they work for, it's just a human being at the other end, and they are probably hired and allocated the project, and their job is to get that done, and all they need is to hire somebody to do that thing. And when I was young and I started out, I was lucky enough to have been working within that company, and so I was in the right place at the right time. And as I've got older, I've spent time working on SEO, and I've pretty much created my luck. So when um this guy who's sat there probably under pressure to get a project completed, he can find me. And I've always liked the saying, "Be the only designer in the room," because so many designers are on like Behance, and people are like, "You got to post on Behance to get work." It's like, no, you're literally one of a billion other designers, and you're probably not the best. But if you are the only designer that's in a room of scientists, who are they going to hire when they need graphic design work? I think that's how a lot of the world works. It's just right place, right time, knowing the right people, and all the rest of it is just smoke and mirrors, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, being the guy that, um, didn't go to university, was kinda told, "In order to become a graphic designer, you need to go to university," that now created a logo for a university. How does
Yes.
that impact or influence any of the way that you raise your daughter and the things that you teach her about education?
Um, it's definitely. I mean, maybe not like directly impacted what I teach her, because something that's really important to me is that I let her become her own person and that she has her own interests. But I know that she learns through watching. For example, when I released my book, she saw the stack of printed paper with the notes and stuff on it. She saw the first sample come through the door. She was kind of there when I first opened it. Um, and she helped with some of the Kickstarter stuff. And while she probably didn't really understand the kind of, I guess, significance of what I did, because it was a lot of work and a dream for me, and a lot of work to get there. But I know that she's picked stuff up from seeing that, because one day she came up to me and said, "Daddy, I want to write a book." This is a 5-year-old, it's probably the only place that she's picked it up from. She's seen that I've created something and made it a reality. And it's been quite cute, sort of helping her get some paper and folding it up and sort of using salad tape and stuff. And she sat down, and she's not at the point yet where she can string a sentence together on her own, but she can ask me, "Daddy, how would you spell this? Daddy, how would you spell it?" And she sat down and she's wrote her own little books, which has been very cute. And I know that that has directly sort of impacted her. But as for, you know, uh, other stuff like how the world works and things like that, I'm definitely going to be like sharing it. Whether I, actually sit down and have a word with her like about it, probably not. But it, uh, if she was to have an idea, I know that I would sit down with her and help her turn it from a dream into a real thing. Because at the end of the day, no matter who you are or where you come from, a dream gets achieved by simply working out how you are going to do it and turning that into actionable steps. And if you do all of those steps, then you will achieve that thing, whether that's be like a leader of a country, or a writer of a book, or a web designer, or somebody that manufactures a specific product. As long as you know what the final destination needs to be, you can literally reverse engineer that. And I know that I will teach her that.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, as we wind down here, I have two final questions for you too.
Sure.
And that would be, what has been your greatest parenting success, and what has been your greatest parenting either failure or learning?
Sure. So I think greatest success for me is that I'm there for her. And that was a lot of work to get to, because after me and her mum separated, we did sadly need to go through the family court system. So I worked really hard to have an equal role and be there and be present in her life as much as I physically can. And I'm really proud of how that's come together. Like, one thing that's really important for me is something as simple as picking her up from school and being at the front of the queue. Like, probably one of the highlights of my day is a moment that she steps out the door, she's looking, and I want to make sure that I'm always there, that she can see me, that I'm either at the front of the queue or present enough so that I can do this and she can see me. because that like her face lights up when she sees me, and it's a small thing, but it's like one of the highlights of my day. And it's just really nice that I'm very lucky, thanks to my job that kind of came from a hobby, to be in the position where I can be there. I can pick her up from school. I don't need to miss any of these things. I'm always there for the school plays. I'm always there for the parents' evening. I'm there for all of these things. And, I'm really, really proud as a parent to be in that position. So that's one thing. I feel really proud of that. And I feel hopefully my daughter will always remember that I was always there through all of these things. As for failures, it's hard to think of something, so it's a little bit of a silly thing, but kids watch everything you do, and there are sometimes they will do something that's really annoying, and you just think to yourself, "Where on earth have you picked that up from?" And then you remember, and I'll give you an example. So every morning for school, my little one just does not want to get out of bed. I'm like, Evie, time to get up now. Come on, let's get up. I can even leave the alarm ringing for like 15 minutes and she just sleeps through it. And where's she learned this from? And I literally need to almost like drag her out of the bed. And yeah, thinking about where she's learned it from. So in the week, I get up, alarm goes off, out of the bed, get things ready, get, kind of like military operation basically for school. But at the weekend, this is my time to rest. So Saturday, Sunday morning. And my little one, for whatever reason, she won't wake up at that time in the week, but at the weekend she's like, "Daddy, let's get up." And I'm like, "Nope." And I'm doing everything that she's doing, like blanket over my head, like, "Nope, nope, nope, nope." She has picked this annoying habit up from me. And well, it's not really a failure. It kind of is, because I know that this is probably a permanent thing that she has learned from me. So all those little habits like biting your nails or picking your nose or whatever, the things that you think they can't see, they see it and they will copy it. And yeah, the only way to stop them doing it is to not do that thing. So sadly, yeah, one of my parenting failures is not like being lazy at the weekend and wanting a lion, because she has clearly picked up that from me. So
That's great. That's great. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Before we go, if folks want to find you online, connect with you, follow you, where can they do that?
Sure. So something I worked really hard on over the years is making sure that I have consistent handles across all social media platforms. So on everything, I'm Logo Geek, one word. So whatever platform you use, I'm probably on there. So if you want to connect, feel free to send me a DM, or just ping me an email. All of these platforms should at least have a link to my website, and you can find a contact form which will have an email. But yeah, if if you watch this, you've found it useful and you just want to connect, or you just want to chat or hang out or whatever, I'm always open to receiving emails. So feel free to reach out and we can go from there.
And then your book is Make a Living Designing Logos, and folks can
That's
find that on
correct.
Amazon.
Yeah, so I think we mentioned it through this, but one of my biggest dreams in life was to write a book, and I eventually finished and released that book. And hopefully, if you're at the stage where where you got a skill, whether it is logo design or even other skills, you should find it relevant and useful for those. It's taking that skill and turning it into an actual profitable business and building it. And I've made it as honest and relatable as possible. So hopefully, if you want to make a living designing logos or make a living designing whatever, it should be a useful book for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ian, for being a guest and for
You're very
sharing with us.
welcome.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, take care. Thanks again for the opportunity. And thanks to everyone that's listened to this. You've made it to the end.